Listen to me. When you hear the words Trump slams India's tech rise, it sounds like just another headline. But let me tell you something. This is not just politics. This is power. This is domination. This is about the future of the world. You have a giant standing in Washington, raising his voice, throwing punches with words, trying to hold the line. And on the other side, you have the quiet move, the silent strike, the precision of Sundar Pichai, reshaping the battlefield without even lifting his voice. That is strength. That is control. That is how you crush without showing force. When Trump raises his voice against India's tech rise, it is not just a reaction, it is a signal. A signal of fear of losing ground, of watching a foundation that once seemed unshakable begin to crack beneath his feet. For decades, America stood at the center of technological dominance. The world looked to Silicon Valley as the birthplace of every revolution, from the microchip to the internet, from social media to artificial intelligence. America was the undisputed champion. But champions don't shout when they are winning. Champions don't scream when they are secure. They roar when they feel the threat coming closer, when the challenger steps into the ring and refuses to back down. That is what Trump's words reveal, not strength, but the realization that America's position is being challenged in ways it has never faced before. The rise of India's technology sector is not a quiet story anymore. It is a storm building momentum day after day, powered by the hunger of millions of engineers, dreamers, and innovators. The numbers tell a story that cannot be ignored. India is producing more tech talent than any nation on earth. Global corporations, from Google to Microsoft, are being led by Indian minds. Startups are booming. Investors are shifting their eyes east, and the narrative of technological supremacy is no longer American alone. This is not something you can dismiss with a tweet or a speech. This is structural. This is generational. This is the kind of movement that changes the course of history, and Trump knows it. His anger, his loud attacks, his desperate attempts to slam India are born from the fear of losing control over the crown jewel of American identity, technological innovation. Fear always speaks louder than confidence. When you are winning, you don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to shout from podiums or launch attacks. Your success speaks for itself. But when you feel your grip slipping, your voice rises. This is what we are witnessing. The loud reaction of a leader who sees the writing on the wall. He understands that the rise of India in technology is not just competition, it is transformation. It is the beginning of a new order where America no longer holds the monopoly. And for someone who built his image on strength, dominance, and winning, this is unbearable. The truth is, the real battle is not fought in words. It is fought in laboratories, in code, in innovation hubs scattered across the world. And in that battlefield, India is not just present, it is advancing. The noise from Washington cannot silence the quiet power of a billion-strong nation investing in its future. Every time Trump slams India, it reveals more about America's anxiety than about India's threat. Because deep down, the U.S. understands that the center of gravity in technology is shifting. It is no longer just Silicon Valley dictating the rules. Bangalore, Hyderabad, and countless other Indian tech cities are becoming the engines of global innovation. Trump's loud voice is a mask covering the fear that the unchallenged supremacy of America in technology is over. It is the sound of someone realizing that the challenger is not backing down, that the fight is no longer one-sided, that the next era of technological power might not belong to Washington at all. It is fear wrapped in sound, noise trying to drown out the silence of a force that is rising with precision and discipline. India's rise in technology is not a coincidence. It is not luck. It is not a passing trend. It is the result of years of discipline, resilience, and an unstoppable drive that has turned the country into a global powerhouse of innovation. When you look closely, you see a nation that refused to remain in the shadows of others, a nation that took every obstacle and transformed it into a stepping stone. This rise is not just about talent or numbers. It is about the mentality of an entire generation determined to prove that the future of technology does not belong to one country or one region, but to those who have the courage to fight for it with discipline and relentless focus. Discipline is at the heart of this rise. Millions of young engineers and developers in India spend years mastering their craft, building solutions, and working tirelessly to compete on a global scale. This discipline is not glamorous. It does not make headlines, but it builds the foundation for dominance. Every code written in the late hours, every start-up launched with limited resources, every student pushing through challenges to compete in the global market. All of this discipline adds up to a force so powerful, it cannot be ignored. India's rise in technology is not fueled by short bursts of brilliance. It is powered by consistent, unstoppable effort that keeps growing day after day, year after year. Resilience is another weapon in this story. India has faced countless setbacks, infrastructure challenges, economic hurdles, global skepticism. But none of these obstacles stopped the nation's march forward. In fact, every challenge became fuel. Instead of breaking under pressure, the country adapted, innovated, and moved forward with even greater strength. That resilience is visible today in the way Indian companies compete head to head with the biggest global players, not as imitators, but as leaders in their own right. Resilience is why Indian talent has not only risen within its own borders, but has also taken command across the world, leading some of the biggest and most influential tech companies in history. This unstoppable drive is what truly separates India from others. There is a hunger, a determination to rise that cannot be manufactured. It comes from a deep, rooted belief that the future belongs to those who are willing to work harder, smarter, and longer than anyone else. That drive is what propels Indian entrepreneurs to build companies that challenge global giants. That drive is what inspires young innovators to push boundaries in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, data science, and emerging technologies. It is not about copying what others have done. It is about shaping new paths, creating new industries, and defining the standards of tomorrow. The unstoppable momentum is also powered by scale. With one of the largest youth populations in the world, India has a talent base unmatched by any nation. This scale is not just about numbers. It is about diversity of thought, diversity of innovation, and diversity of vision. When millions of ambitious minds come together with discipline, resilience, and hunger, the result is a wave of progress that cannot be contained. This is why India's rise in technology feels inevitable. It is not one company, not one sector, not one leader. It is an entire ecosystem moving forward with unstoppable energy. India's rise in technology is disciplined and unstoppable because it is built on more than just ambition. It is built on sacrifice, on struggle, on resilience against every obstacle, and on the unshakable belief that the world's future will be shaped not by noise, but by the relentless march of those who refuse to quit. It is a force that does not slow down, a movement that grows stronger with every challenge, and a story that is only just beginning. Sundar Pichai's silence is not weakness. It is power. In a world where leaders shout, where voices rise to dominate headlines, his greatest weapon is his ability to move without noise. Silence creates mystery. It creates focus. It creates control. It forces the world to lean in closer, to pay attention, to realize that true strength does not always announce itself with anger or theatrics. In the battlefield of technology, where every move is scrutinized, Sundar Pichai has mastered the art of letting his actions speak louder than any speech. This is why his silence becomes louder than the loudest shout from any podium. Power is not always about being seen. It is about being felt. Sundar Pichai does not need to fire back with words when politicians attack India's rise. He does not need to engage in public spats or defend himself with noise. His silence is a reminder that battles are not won in debates. They are won in execution. While others spend time throwing accusations, he spends time shaping the future. That quiet focus builds an empire more powerful than speeches. Every new product, every new innovation under his leadership is a silent strike, a move that changes the balance of power without the need for a single word. Silence is also strategy. When you reveal too much, you expose weakness. When you speak too loudly, you show desperation. But when you remain calm, composed, and focused, the world underestimates you until it is too late. Sundar Pichai's silence keeps his opponents guessing. They cannot predict his next move. They cannot prepare for what is coming because he never telegraphs his punches. By the time the world realizes what has happened, the move is already complete. The game already changed. That is the power of silence in leadership. It creates unpredictability, and unpredictability is the most dangerous weapon in competition. This silence also reflects confidence. When you know what you are building, when you are certain of the direction you are heading, you do not need to convince anyone with noise. Confidence speaks through results, and Sundar Pichai has results that no one can argue with. Under his guidance, technology has not just advanced. It has defined the way billions of people live, communicate, and work. His silence is the posture of someone who knows that history will remember actions, not arguments. Leaders who scream may dominate the moment, But leaders who execute silently dominate the future. Silence demands respect. In a room full of shouting voices, the person who stays calm draws the most attention. People instinctively turn to the one who does not get rattled, the one who remains focused no matter the noise around them. Sundar Pichai embodies that principle. He shows that real leadership does not require constant validation. It requires vision and discipline. His silence is not the absence of power. It is the presence of absolute control. Sundar Pichai's silence is not passive. It is active. It is calculated, disciplined, and deliberate. Every quiet decision builds momentum. Every silent move reshapes the playing field. While others are distracted by words and noise, he is building structures that last, systems that influence generations, and technologies that change the world. His silence is not empty. It is full of intent, full of purpose, full of unstoppable energy, directed toward reshaping the global balance of power. The clash between noise and silence is becoming the defining battle of our time. On one side, you have loud voices, public statements, accusations, and endless commentary. On the other, you have quiet focus, calculated moves, and the power of results speaking for themselves. This is not just a battle of words. It is a battle of strategy, influence, and long-term vision. In the modern world, those who dominate with noise often capture attention, but those who dominate with silence capture reality. Noise can stir emotion, it can create panic, it can grab headlines, but silence creates control, precision, and the ability to shape outcomes without interference. Noise is immediate. It demands attention, forces reaction, and seeks to overwhelm opponents. Politicians, critics, and loud leaders rely on noise to project strength, to intimidate, to assert dominance. But noise is temporary. It fades once the words are spoken, once the tweets are deleted, once the speeches end. In contrast, silence is enduring. It allows for reflection, analysis, and planning. It provides the space to make decisions based on intelligence and strategy rather than emotion and impulse. When Sundar Pichai moves in silence, he exemplifies this principle. The world may notice the noise first, but the results arrive quietly, with impact that echoes far longer than any shouted message. The contrast between noise and silence is also a contrast between chaos and order. Noise thrives on unpredictability, emotional reaction, and external validation. It can create short-term victories, but it rarely builds lasting power. Silence, on the other hand, thrives on discipline, clarity, and internal focus. It allows leaders and innovators to anticipate challenges, prepare responses, and act with precision. The rise of India in technology demonstrates this truth. While others argue, shout, and attempt to halt progress through rhetoric, India advances quietly, leveraging talent, strategy, and vision to achieve milestones that shock the world. The clash is visible everywhere, in boardrooms, in innovation hubs, in global negotiations. Noise can be deceptive. It gives the illusion of power, but it often conceals weakness. When leaders shout about dominance, criticize competitors, or react defensively, they reveal vulnerability even as they attempt to conceal it. Silence, by contrast, is a mask of strength. It allows action to be measured, thoughtful, and unstoppable. When Sundar Pichai does not respond publicly to criticism or political pressure, he is not being passive. He is maintaining focus, preserving resources, and ensuring that the real work continues unimpeded. Silence creates suspense and unpredictability. And unpredictability is a force multiplier in any competition. The battle between noise and silence also highlights the difference between perception and reality. Noise shapes perception, influencing opinions, headlines, and social media trends. Silence shapes reality, influencing outcomes, building infrastructure, and creating change that cannot be undone. India's technological rise is a testament to this principle. While the world debates, critiques, and expresses skepticism, the country quietly moves forward, creating systems, innovations, and solutions that leave competitors scrambling to catch up. In this battle, silence is more than a tactic, it is a philosophy. In every arena, those who understand the power of silence hold the advantage. Noise can intimidate, distract, and generate fear temporarily, but silence endures. It allows for strategic thinking, disciplined execution, and long-term dominance. As the world witnesses the clash between loud voices and quiet power, it becomes clear that noise may capture attention, but silence captures results, shapes reality, and ultimately defines the future of global leadership. America's crown of innovation is no longer untouchable. For decades, the United States held the uncontested position as the global leader in technology, the standard bearer for innovation, creativity, and progress. Silicon Valley was more than a region. It was a symbol, a fortress of ideas that defined the modern world. Every breakthrough, every invention, every major digital revolution seemed to flow from its epicenter. For many, it felt permanent, unshakable, as if the crown of innovation could never be challenged. But the world has changed, and the cracks in that dominance are becoming impossible to ignore. India's technological rise is redefining the global landscape. It is not happening quietly, but it is happening with precision and purpose. The talent emerging from India is vast, diverse, and highly skilled, capable of competing with and often surpassing the best minds in the United States. Indian engineers, entrepreneurs, and innovators are no longer supporting players in a global story written by others. They are authors in their own right, shaping the narrative of technology, shaping the products, platforms, and systems that billions of people rely on every day. The crown that America once held with confidence is being contested, challenged by a force that operates on scale, discipline, and relentless determination. The threat is not just in numbers, but in strategy. India has invested in its future with foresight. Education, infrastructure, research and development, startup ecosystems, and global partnerships are all part of a deliberate plan to position the nation as a technological powerhouse. Each investment builds capability. Every initiative strengthens influence, and collectively, they create momentum that is impossible to stop. America's crown of innovation is slipping not because of a single failure, but because the global playing field has shifted. The balance of power is moving eastward, and America's historical dominance faces a challenge unlike any before. Leadership plays a role in this shift. While loud voices in Washington attempt to assert authority through criticism, threats, and speeches, Indian leadership focuses on execution, collaboration, and long-term planning. The contrast is stark. Loud, reactive measures may create headlines in the short term, but they do not produce sustainable results. India's methodical, disciplined approach, combined with the ingenuity of its people, ensures that progress continues regardless of external noise. In this environment, America's crown, once a symbol of unchallenged supremacy, is at risk of being overtaken by a new, silent force that builds power steadily, strategically, and effectively. The consequences of this shift are profound. Innovation drives economies, shapes societies, and determines global influence. As India gains ground in sectors like artificial intelligence, cloud computing, data analytics, and software development, the world's center of technological gravity shifts. Markets, investors, and global enterprises are beginning to recognize that leadership in technology is no longer a given for America. Competitors emerge, new collaborations form, and the assumptions that once underpinned global dominance are being rewritten. America's crown of innovation is challenged not by chaos, but by calculation. The rise of India demonstrates that dominance is never permanent. Leadership, strategy, talent, and execution determine who holds power in the long run. Every quiet innovation, every startup, every breakthrough in India chips away at what was once considered untouchable, and the world is witnessing a historic shift in the balance of technological influence. The reality is clear. Supremacy in technology is not inherited, it is earned. It requires vision, discipline, and the ability to adapt faster than others. The crown that America has worn for decades is under siege, and India is proving that the future does not belong to those who shout the loudest, but to those who execute with precision, intelligence, and relentless focus.